Hello, hello. Good morning. Hopefully everything is working as usual. My name is Sarah Fargo O'Brien, and this is the Healing Hour. If you are here, let me know that you are here. Should be live on LinkedIn and on my YouTube channel, which is YouTube/@TimelessTherapist. So if you need to go there, not LinkedIn, feel free. Sorry, guys. No, I need moisture on my lips and my mouth. I'm always taking water. Okay, here we are. I'm all over the place today, guys. Wait till I tell you what I've had going on. If you're here, let me know that you are here. And I'll do my check-in and take some deep breaths, and then we'll dive into content. What we're talking about today is emotional unavailability, and then subsequently emotional availability, like what it means to be emotionally available, what it means to be emotionally unavailable, and like where we learn this. Check in for me. It's been a hell of a week, y'all. I got a lot of shit going on. I just spent 45 minutes on the phone with the IRS trying to talk to them and figure out, and tell them why I don't owe them $9,600 because they have it incorrect. I have proven this to them twice already. Yet they are still sending me notices and threatening to put liens on my property and all this stuff. So that's been super freaking stressful, guys. And I spent 45 minutes on the phone, literally got off right before this. So all over the place from that. I haven't been well, haven't been feeling well. So that has been a challenge. I'm not getting paid by health insurance. So yes, I'd like to bitch about that all day long, but I'm not going to. But it is a stressor that I have going on right now. Is trying to figure out why United Healthcare does not want to pay me for any claims since the beginning of the year. And if you guys know what day it is, right? We're at the end of February. That's 2 months without pay that I've gone. This is what therapists deal with all the time, folks, having to chase down our money for services correctly rendered and correctly billed for, because health insurance is big business. Catch my article on that. I wrote too, and explains exactly what I mean. And this is the problem that we run into. Health insurance is big business, and they don't give a shit that they haven't paid me in 2 months. But let me tell you how much it affects me being able to pay my bills quite a bit, especially because I've rendered services and should be paid. That's been like my week. I'm stressed about stuff. I'm all over the place. Let me take my 3 deep breaths so that I can get connected here to everybody. Again, if you're here, let me know that you're here so I could give you a shout out and we can have a conversation. Let me take 3 deep breaths. If you want to take them with me, in through your nose, out through your mouth, try to elongate that exhale. That's what's going to clear out the lungs, give you ability to take in a full deep breath, which is going to increase oxygen to your brain, which turns down the cortisol, which I got pumping right now because I'm pissed at the IRS and United Healthcare. Okay, here we go. First breath in and exhale. Again, 2. One more. Okay. That always settles me down a bit, like I always say to you guys, so that I'm not just like talking at you 100 miles a minute, which tends to happen when my anxiety and my stress get going. So I'm a little bit more grounded. I'm a little bit more here. I have not got to drink my coffee yet, but I have been awake for a good number of hours this morning and walked the dog in 60-degree weather here in Virginia. Last week we had ice and snow. This week it feels like spring. That's pretty much Virginia for you. So grab your coffee, grab your scone, grab your notebook. If you want to take notes, pull up, get comfortable. Let's talk about emotional availability. Let me find my slide deck. Look at that, guys. getting better and better. At least I hope so. Again, my name is Sarah Fargo O'Brien, and I am the owner of two businesses, Thrive and Shine Counseling and Thrive and Shine Coaching and Consulting. I am based here in Richmond, Virginia. I have been a practicing psychotherapist for over 15 years and been running my private practice for 9 years. 2 years ago, I started coaching and consulting business to dive into trauma-informed leadership consulting, and to expand the scope of my services into coaching to be able to reach people in places other than Virginia and Maryland, which is where I am a licensed clinical social worker. Come on, Interstate Compact, because then I'll be able to reach whatever states have the Interstate Compact, which is quite a lot, almost countrywide. So that's me. That's why I'm talking about emotional unavailability and availability. And those are my credentials that sort of allowed me to do so. I work with this stuff all the time as a psychotherapist, also in my own life, in my own trauma healing, and my own self-awareness and self-reflection. This is important stuff. You can just make sure that nobody is saying that they can't get in or anything like that. They can't access the show. Okay, I think we're good. So, how open and available are you to emotions, those of yours and those of others? What does emotionally unavailable mean? It means that a person has difficulty forming deep emotional connections or expressing their feelings openly. There's a lot of scenarios and situations in which somebody may be emotionally unavailable. They might be emotionally unavailable due to past trauma. They might be emotionally unavailable due to symptoms of a mental health disorder. They might be emotionally unavailable due to anxious avoidant attachment or disorganized attachment style. They may be emotionally unavailable because they have lacked learning and information on how to be available and what that means, how to talk about emotions. Those are all reasons somebody could be emotionally unavailable. So let's try not to villainize and demonize people that are not emotionally available. It is difficult. I find it difficult to engage with people that are emotionally unavailable, especially in close interpersonal relationships. And I have to remember that, it's born out of something, and do my best to have grace and patience. At least that's the trauma-informed way. I'm not perfect at it, but I do my best to show up that way in the world. So we can all, try to remember that this is likely not somebody's fault, or they're not doing it on purpose. This is either something they've learned or really the lack of learning something. Good news, we can learn it now. We can increase emotional intelligence and emotional availability with practice, with information, with accountability. So we're not stuck in that space. And so we need to remember that learning is still available to us, even if we are adults, even if we are older adults. It's not impossible to make changes that are good for you and good for the people around you. Nick's in the house. Hi, Nick. Good to see you. Happy to see you dropping in. Nick has got some cool stuff going on. I talked about it last week. Shout out again because Nick is here. She started her own publishing company, guiding brilliant writers. I've had the opportunity to work on some writing projects with Nick. We were in an anthology together where somebody else was publishing, and then I got to join an anthology where Nick was publishing, and got to work with some really amazing people on that. So appreciate Nick stopping by to say, hey, thank you for being here. Okay, what are we going to talk about today? 4 dimensions of adult emotional availability learning. Where do we learn this? And learning that our parents or caretakers model this for us. What are the 6 signs of being emotionally unavailable? And does emotional availability have anything to do with emotional intelligence? I'm going to spoil that right now and say yes, but I wouldn't put it in there if it wasn't a yes. You guys know that. Hi, Lisa. Happy to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Where are you coming from, Lisa? I don't think I know where you are at. I'm glad that you are here. Thanks for Dropping a message in there. You're welcome, Nick. No problem for the shout out. I'm happy to do that since you popped up here, and I believe in your work. So I'm happy to shout out to you. 4 key dimensions. You guys, I'm going to pop in and out here with my comments and then some some content and then some comments. Okay, 4 key dimensions to emotional availability. So being emotionally available. Lisa is joining from Trinidad. Sorry, guys, I'm reading the messages. And Tobago, yay, so glad to see you. I bet it's nice there. Well, I hope it's nice there. Maybe nicer than it is here. I wish I was there right now, actually. Super jealous. Okay, 4 key dimensions of emotional availability. Sensitivity, emotional structuring, non-intrusiveness, and non-hostility. What do these mean? Sensitivity refers to the ability of an adult to connect with their child. So we're talking about in parenting and where we first learned this, and maintain a healthy, positive relationship. So this is an effort of the parent to be sensitive to their child, to connect with them, to do their part to create a healthy relationship. Emotional restructuring. This involves helping a child become independent by meeting them where they are. Not only do we help a child become independent by meeting them where we are, I use this in the psychotherapy space to meet clients where they are. This is one of the main things and the first things that I learned in clinical social work school. And it is to meet the client where they are. So we can't expect clients to be more emotionally aware than wherever they are starting. You know, the idea is that we are maybe going to grow in that, but we have to meet them where they are instead of expecting them to meet us where we are, especially if we're farther along in emotional intelligence and emotional availability. So same when you are parenting, meeting them where they are and guiding them from that point instead of expecting them to be someplace else and getting frustrated that they are not someplace else. Okay, still in the 4 dimensions, non-intrusiveness involves letting the child take the lead and giving them space. Again, I use this still in psychotherapy with adults, letting them take the lead, giving them space. I offer guidance. I offer suggestions if they ask, but ultimately, I always say that I work with adults, but it's good to start teaching children this. But because I work with adults, like they have autonomous choice, and I need to respect that and support that in them. Even if it turns out to have poor consequences for them, then we just sort of learn from that. And we deal with that in the therapy space, but letting them take the lead and giving them space to sort of sort things out for themselves is a really important piece. And it absolutely leads to being able to develop some independence and your own emotional availability and own emotional awareness for yourself about yourself. Non-hostility refers to the adult being able to control their emotions and not let them impact their child. Again, folks, I use this in the psychotherapy space, as in I have to be able to control my emotions. And what they, again, kind of teach us in clinical social work school is that you kind of leave your stuff at the door. You need to be open, available, non-judgmental, and have unconditional positive regard for the client in that space. And that means your emotions can't be taking over the space. And so you have to find a way to manage them or compartmentalize them until you have time to deal with them later, so that somebody else can show up in their emotions and yours are not impacting them. Now, we're talking about this in parent-child relationships, and then I'm talking about it in the psychotherapy space. And those by default have a little bit of a one-up position. So the parent and the psychotherapist has a little bit of a one-up position on the child and the client because they know a little bit more or are a little bit further along and are trying to guide and teach somebody else. And so that's where it's really important that your emotions don't impact, is when you're sort of like influencing or guiding somebody else. We don't want our emotions to overly influence them or take over what they have going on. We want them to have the space to have their emotions, and our emotions don't get in the way. That doesn't mean we don't have emotions. That doesn't mean we don't share them with people in relationship with. That doesn't mean you don't share emotions if you're parent with a child. That doesn't mean I never share emotions that I have with clients. It means being really aware to control what we have going on so it's not impacting somebody else who is trying to experience their emotions or like sort of work through something. Let me know if you have questions, guys. Pop them in at any time. Okay, so the learning piece. Social emotional learning is a big piece of what I do and fits in neatly and nicely with trauma informed leadership because social emotional learning is, might as well be synonymous with emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence also, like that in and of itself, and the definition of that encompasses social awareness, and that means being aware of the fears and feelings of others and the experiences they have, and that they may be different from ours based on their lived experiences. So, social emotional learning is becoming more of a topic, but honestly, this is not something that we get. So, if you were born before about 1990, maybe 1995, even, um, maybe even a little bit later, maybe even as late as 2000, you didn't get this in school. You maybe didn't get this at home. I certainly didn't. This is not something that my generation of parents knew anything about. This has come about a lot more in research, and we know that it's very impactful. Social relationships, emotional experiences are hugely important to the human experience as we move through life. And if we don't know how to deal with them effectively, then it is going to negatively impact us. And it absolutely does, because relationships exist everywhere, including in the workplace. That's why this is important for trauma informed leadership. That's why this is important for workplace safety and psychological safety in the workplace. Social emotional learning is a big piece of what I coach and consult on, like I said. And of course, I'm working with this in the psychotherapy space all the time. The hope is that we are going to add more of this type of learning in schools, as it would be great to start learning this when we're young. But if you didn't, it doesn't mean you can't learn it now. So hear me loud and clearly on that. You have some work to do if you didn't learn this when you were younger. And I feel you, because I had some work to do on this because I did not learn this when I was younger. However, it's extremely beneficial. Okay, so research around the connection between parents and children leads to those 4 key dimensions that we were talking about, and those demonstrate and show adult emotional availability. And in this case, like the way that research started talking about it is adult emotional availability in terms of their child and parenting their child. Developmental psychology tells us that we start learning before we realize we are even learning. Social emotional learning is really important and something that we do learn from caretakers. And this is before we have language to describe it. This is before we have language or even physical and physiological capabilities of mouth movement to voice and communicate things. Like, even if you are understanding it cognitively, small babies and children, before they learn how to talk, can't verbalize that back to you, but that doesn't mean they're not learning. Okay, so this is really important to learn. Learning starts immediately. If not in utero, then as soon as babies are out, they start learning and taking in information. And I fully agree with you here, Nick. Absolutely needs to start early. Schools should have these programs. The hope is that the more we talk about this kind of stuff, that they will incorporate these programs in schools. It is equally important to academic learning, if not more important. Social emotional learning and emotional intelligence is going to take you so much farther in the world than IQ or innate intelligence or things that because we always have to deal with people, right? Like almost everywhere across the board, whether you want to or not, or whether you work closely with people or not. It's like they're still there and we're going to have to interact with them. So this is all stuff to know. Okay, and so why this is like impactful, and especially to be talking about parenting and with small children, is that if a parent or caretaker is not emotionally aware, not emotionally intelligent, and not able to emotionally regulate themselves, then children will learn these same knots, right? They will learn not to be emotionally aware. They will learn not to be emotionally intelligent. They will learn not how to regulate their emotions at all, let alone effectively. It's basically just like leaving it out and not teaching anything about emotions, which I don't know about y'all, but that's basically how I grew up. not knowing anything about them, what's appropriate, how to name them, how to manage them, like any of that. And so if you're not active in this with your children, and or they're not getting this from someplace else, they're not learning this. They're learning what it's not, right? And they're basically learning how to not do it instead of how to be emotionally tuned in to themselves and other people. Being aware of your own emotions, how you handle them, and how you respond to somebody else's emotions matters, right? This has implication for relationships. This has implication for productivity. This has implication for bottom line in businesses. And of course, this has implication in every relationship across the board. So some signs of being emotionally unavailable. It's lack of emotional sensitivity, poor emotional structuring, intrusive behaviors, avoidances and defenses. There's one more in there that I can't think, but we will get to it. So let's start with lack of emotional sensitivity. What does this mean? If you lack emotional sensitivity, then you may have difficulty recognizing emotional cues. You might be really dismissive or get my mouth on right, minimizing of other people's feelings and your own. You often struggle with empathy and you have difficulty identifying emotions. Lack of emotional sensitivity is also lack of emotional intelligence. We're not tuning into this. We don't know this about ourselves. We can't recognize this in other people. If you lack emotional sensitivity, it's going to take effort to gain emotional sensitivity and to learn this stuff, especially about yourself and identifying emotions that you experience. And the more that you can do that, then empathy increases when you notice other people experiencing those same emotions. So you guys see it in my content and you hear me say it frequently. If you don't have these skills, then you have self-work to do. If you are a leader, then you absolutely need to be doing this work. I will say it again and again and not feel bad about it. Poor emotional structuring. So lack of emotional sensitivity is difficulty recognizing emotional cues, dismissing and minimizing emotions, not having empathy, and not being able to identify emotions. Now, poor emotional structuring is an inconsistent display of emotions, difficulty maintaining stable relationships, inability to create safe emotional spaces, and avoiding deep conversations. So it's like if lack of emotional sensitivity is being like completely unaware, poor emotional structuring is like ineffective behaviors sort of around it. It's sort of sounds a little bit like a response to lack of emotional awareness is just an inability to have safe and healthy relationships, because we have to be able to hold space, engage in some deep conversations, and interact in an in an interpersonal connected kind of way in relationships. And if we have poor emotional structuring, we're not able to do that. We have to be able to tap into our emotions to connect with others in that way, and we all need that. Humans need connection. Intrusive behaviors. I find these to be really interesting. Being overly critical or judgmental, controlling or demanding of emotional responses, and impatience with emotions. I 100% grew up in an environment where there were intrusive behaviors. My mother was all of these things. Definitely overly critical and judgmental, controlling and demanding of emotional responses. Like if I was upset, then I wasn't allowed to be upset, or whatever the case may be, which also translated into impatience with emotions. If I felt anything, I was too much, or I was being dramatic, or I was too sensitive. Really, some of these were like normal emotions to things that were happening. Like getting bullied in school, or, getting a bad grade on something that actually upset me. My mom was very dismissive, lacked emotional sensitivity, and it definitely had an impact. So not only did I not learn like the 4 dimensions of being emotionally available, hence like emotional health and connection to my own emotions, and that in a healthy way, I actually learned poor things. So not only didn't learn the good things, I learned things that are completely unhelpful. And absolutely I perpetuated these things until I've learned myself what it means to be emotionally available, emotionally sensitive, and emotionally intelligent. It takes work, guys. If you did not learn this growing up, it is going to take work now, but it's not impossible. Okay, the other one I couldn't remember is hostile patterns. So let me go back real quick, just recap. We're at 6 signs of emotional unavailability, lack of emotional sensitivity, poor emotional structuring, intrusive behaviors, hostile patterns, avoidance, and defenses. Hostile patterns are withdrawing when others show vulnerability, creating emotional distance, responding with anger or criticism to emotional needs, and refusing to take responsibility for emotional impacts. So, in a lot of ways, that some of these things are like avoidance, and we can see them in anxious avoidant attachment. And some of these we can also see in anxious insecure attachment, which are just sort of like the reaching in and blowing up with emotions, and emotional avoidance would be sort of this withdrawing, creating distance and shutting down. Either way, it's definitely sending the message that you're not emotionally available. And I think that's pretty clear. Avoidance and defenses. Fear of commitment or intimacy can be an avoidance. Keeping relationships superficial, avoidance of like going into emotional depth. Prioritizing work or hobbies over relationships, definitely avoidance, like making yourself busy instead of learning how to connect with people in a healthy way. It's like we're just going to avoid that, be busy with tasks, things to do. Repeatedly choosing unavailable or incompatible partners. This could be a defense mechanism so that you can also remain avoidant. Reluctance to discuss the future of relationships, tendency to rationalize or intellectualize feelings. Now, it's interesting that and I think this falls more into a defenses, is the tendency to rationalize or intellectualize feelings. I was really good at this, and it makes sense, right? As I'm a therapist, I understand a lot about emotions from an academic and a practice standpoint. But tapping into your own emotions and being aware of them and being able to regulate your own emotions is completely different than being able to intellectualize and talk about emotions. So, experiencing emotions, managing emotions, naming emotions correctly for yourself, completely different than intellectualizing emotions, which is knowing about them and being able to talk about them. Huge difference there, folks. And that's really important to understand that. It's like you can't just know about these things. Like this requires application to some degree. We have to know about emotions and then know how to apply that to ourselves, to our own self-awareness, self-reflection, and again, emotional regulation. And if you don't know how to regulate your emotions and you're in a position of leadership, you got some work to do, which you guys will hear me say. You can't be emotionally unavailable and emotionally unintelligent and be a leader, at least not a good one, not in my book. So if you can't name this for yourself and you can't regulate your own emotions and you're in a position of leadership, you need to address that. If you need help addressing that, I am here and available to you. If you want to be a good leader, especially in today's landscape, fears and feelings are something that you are going to have to understand and you're going to have to work with, and you're going to have to help people who follow you or that you lead navigate those things. This is required of leadership today. Okay. That is all I have for content. If I don't have any questions, yeah, it's kind of a short show today, sort of doing it last minute. And I have a meeting after this, so I want to be able to give myself some space. That's why I didn't dive into a bunch of content today, but this wraps up February. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about grief. We talked about some trauma responses. Last week, we talked about negative thinking and cognitive distortions. My newsletter will be coming out either later today or tomorrow, so catch that on LinkedIn. If you are on my newsletter sign up or on my newsletter list, my email list, you already got that. I sent that out yesterday, but if you are signed up on LinkedIn, that will be coming out later. Thanks, Nick. I'm glad it was good information. I hope you learned something. Feel free to remind folks that they can watch this on replay on my YouTube channel if they want to learn a little bit more about emotional unavailability and emotional availability. So we had some good themes this month. A lot of them maybe felt, what I would call negative or like not fun topics kind of down, I went over why that was the case. Grief, trauma, negative thinking, even this stuff is born out of my life experiences, a lot of trauma, death of family members, invalidation, and emotional abuse in my family system growing up. And that has been heavy on my mind in February, as it normally is, which is why I discuss these things. Next month is going to be all about trauma informed leadership things. Yes, this is still related to healing and wellness. And you guys know why. And I've said it even in this show, it's like we need to understand emotions, psychology, and the psyche of people to be able to lead well. So I'm going to get to pull in some of my buddies on my show. I told you guys there will be guests. I will start having guests. And the reason I am going to be focusing on trauma-informed leadership in March is because an affinity group, an organization that I'm a part of with other professionals that promote and champion for trauma-informed care in all spaces and places, especially trauma-informed leadership, Integrate Trauma-Informed Network. Shout out to you guys. Love this group of mine. Integrate Network is hosting a month-long virtual symposium for trauma-informed leadership. This is hearing from 10 of our subject matter experts in various subjects and topics on trauma-informed leadership and what that means. We have a good number of people have signed up. And so that's still available to you. It's going to kick off tomorrow. Julie, our guru, is going to be our instructional design guru, created all of the course and the info for all of this. So if you like all that, you want to get in touch with her for instructional design, specifically accessibility and trauma-informed instructional design. She'll be rolling that out tomorrow and or Saturday for everybody that is signed up. And then you will have access to materials for life. So even if you can't go through everything now, it's virtual, everything's pre-recorded. You can keep access to that information and view it at your convenience. So it's not too late to sign up. Go to the Integrate website. You can check my LinkedIn stuff. I have links there for it. There's a link probably on today's post since I'm sort of highlighting this stuff. So there'll be various topics on trauma-informed leadership that we're talking about in the month of March, along with some guests from my network over there, talking about what this looks like, how we engage in self-leadership, how we engage in leadership for times of collective trauma, which we're in right now, and collaborative growth. And there are going to be some good topics that are going to be extremely important as leaders come up in the new generation as well. And we want to set a different precedent of what that looks like, and leaving out the emotions, the humanity of people is no longer going to fly for leadership. I have some other things in the works, some things I'm going to be doing with some buddies of mine that you guys will see more of. I think that's going to be some more of me speaking, maybe some more podcast shows outside of the healing hour. Stay tuned on that until I get some more details. And then how can I help you? So as I wrap up with all my announcements, what can I do for you? Well, if you need somebody to speak or train at your organization, team meeting, company, business, nonprofit, volunteer organization, church group, whatever, I am available for speaking engagements to talk about all of this stuff. Everything I know in terms of self-care, self-love, emotional intelligence, building resilience, trauma-informed leadership, mental health, substance use disorders. These are all things that I can speak on. I am happy to do so. Just reach out to me and we can set that up. I also write. So as much as I speak, I maybe even write more. So if you need me to write up something on this or come up with training materials for you, I can do that as well. In addition to speaking and writing, I have a lot of people services, counseling, coaching, and consulting, and I have digital products that help support the same things that I am teaching and training and speaking and writing on in all other capacities. So there is a freebie on my website the Emotional Intelligence ebook, What Every Person Should Know. It's available right now. You just go click on it and you can download it. And that can help you begin your journey in emotional availability and understanding what that means. I also have what I like to call compassionate self kits. On ways that we don't take care of ourselves or we don't take care of ourselves well, and trying to tap in more to that. So self-care, setting boundaries, burnout awareness, and the burnout recovery full kit has all of the 3 kits prior plus some new information. I also have a self-love care and growth workbook. And it's really going to give you lots of things and trackers to go through, like after you learn what you need to do for self-care, then to actually, which you'll get in the compassionate self-care kit, then you can put all that into action in the self-care workbook. I have 2 new digital products coming soon. One is dealing with negative thinking and the other one is a surprise, and they will be available on my website soon. Of course, I'm available worldwide for coaching services, and I'm available in Virginia and Maryland for psychotherapy services. I do have just like a little bit of space for another 1 or 2 psychotherapy clients. And then I have opened up my calendar for coaching clients and any consulting that you guys might need me for. Thank you for my friends for popping by and dropping your comments in, and for everybody else who's watching, even if you didn't comment, I appreciate you being there. I am enjoying doing this show and giving you guys this information, and I hope that you find it useful. One thing I forgot to do when I was talking about the Integrate Network Trauma-Informed Leadership Symposium is mention our sponsors. So that would be Laura Miller, who is also within our Infinity Group, and Next Gen Ethics, our ethics guru. If you want to know anything about the ethical use of anything, especially AI, like you want to go follow Laura Miller on LinkedIn. She's got a lot of good stuff. She's got a book coming out soon. Mike Ashterbrander and Hounds of Business Community, we appreciate you. We work together closely with Hounds of Business Community and have reciprocity back and forth. Some initiatives they're doing, some initiatives we're doing. They are supporting our trauma-informed leadership event by their sponsorship. Johan Tokra and Creative Neuroconcepts, thank you for being our sponsor. Johan just got back from what he said was an amazing retreat, mental health and personal growth retreat in Peru with some combat veterans. And so he does that on the side. You want to check out his website, Creative Neuroconcepts, for coaching services that he has going on to guide you into better wellness. And then, of course, my buddy, Chasen Forehand, HR for You, and where I am working with him in his nonprofit and the offshoot of HR for You, a transformation kitchen. We appreciate Chasen and HR for You being a sponsor for the Trauma-Informed Leadership Symposium. Thanks, guys. Like, it helps us to be able to like get things out there to people, to help things be affordable for people. And so that we can really disseminate this information as far and wide as we can, because you guys know what I think about it. You know, everybody deserves healing. Everybody needs to hear the message of healing. And I think one of the greatest ways that we get to the most healing for the most people is through trauma-informed care and trauma-informed leadership. That's not going away, even if it gets rebranded and reworded. This is being inclusive and considering all people's lived experiences and how that may impact them and how they show up in the world, and having a sensitivity to that. That's what trauma-informed care is. That's what trauma-informed leadership is. And that's why I think it is a healing message for everybody. And I fold that in to other mental health and relational health information within this show, The Healing Hour. So I hope you learned something. Feel free to tell your friends, catch my show on YouTube, find out more information about me, all the services I offer, and to grab those freebies and other downloads on my website at www.sarahobrienlcsw.com. Like I said, licensed psychotherapist, trauma-informed leader, and a coach and consultant. I appreciate you being here. If nobody's told you today, you matter, you are enough, you are worthy of love, of respect, of attention, of understanding. I send that message to you as much as I send that message to me. I absolutely need it this week. Things have been very challenging. So I do this show almost as much as reminders for myself with healing as for you all, as I like to be open about my own experience, as I'm talking about how you all can improve your own experiences and in life and within yourself. So hear that message. You matter, you are enough, you are worthy. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you guys next week with a topic on trauma-informed leadership. Bye-bye.